What a wonderful day to be out on the bank, and we are here at the amazing Boddington Reservoir, the home of some massive carp. There are plenty of them in the water behind me as well. Now, I've got a level with you. We were planning to film a wonderful PVA bag, loads of flavourings, on the bottom, quite a static approach style method today, and show you guys how we go about that. But we've arrived at the venue. There's hardly a breath of wind. What little wind there is slightly off our back, maybe left to right a little bit. And there's carp cruising. It's a wonderful day. It is the perfect day to have a go on the Pellet Waggler and hopefully catch some massive Boddington beauties using my favourite float rod. My bait tray today is going to look pretty sparse, and that is because pellet waggler fishing for me, it's quite a simple approach. It's all about working really hard, using simple baits, using tried and trusted methods. So this is my feed, 8mm dynamite catter pellets, very dense pellet, fire out a long distance, very uniform in size, and as the name suggests, perfect for catapulting out when you're pellet waggler fishing. What I've done though to make these pellets a little bit different, I've added a little bit of weight so they'll catapult a little bit further. I can group them better, and also added attraction to them is I've added quite a lot of this hemp oil. Now, I think when you're fishing near the surface and you're trying to pull fish on big expansive water, oils are really important. So what I like to do is add quite a bit, and I'm talking about a really good glug. These pellets have already had some oil added, and I'll just add some more, no problem with that. I don't think you can overdo it. Give it a swizz round, and when I catapult those pellets out, like I say, there's a bit of extra weight there, so they'll travel a little bit further, but also we create that flat spot on the water's surface. And you'll see on these big expansive water, especially when there's very little wind or just a tiny little ripple, those fish love sitting in that oil, and they'll follow that flat spot across the lake, hopefully to where you're feeding those pellets, and they'll settle on your pellets. The plan is also, with my rig and tactics, I'm going to use a little bit of a different rig to what most people, a different float should I say, to what most people would use for pellet waggler fishing. It enables me to fish past my feed, and I think that's going to be really important today, because I think with the wind off our backs, we can catapult these pellets out to say 30 metres, and then we can cast our float to 35 metres, and I think there'll be fish hanging back off the feed, maybe in that oil slick, and that's where we'll catch them. There's not loads of fish coming directly to the feed until later in the day on a lot of these venues at the minute, but that might change as the session goes on or as the season goes on. But simple baits for feeding, and realistically simple baits for hooking as well. I love to use slow falling wafter style baits when I'm doing this style of fishing. It means that I'm not constantly changing my hook bait all the time. Maybe if I was using a pellet bait, I'd be, it goes soft, you have to change it, falls out the band, you have a few problems with that. I can fish a bayonet on the end of my hair and fish with my favourite little yellow wowsers. And I've caught loads of fish on these over the years, whether it's method feeder fishing, mugging fish on a pole, or just pellet waggler fishing. And I'm well aware that that little yellow wowser is far smaller than what I'm feeding. But trust me, I always feel that smaller hook baits get picked up a little bit better than bigger hook baits when you're fishing for big wary carp. I think small hook baits are key. And the fact that it's sinking nice and slow gives us more time in that kill zone, because obviously we're fishing on the drop when we're pellet waggler fishing. So bright bait, I've looked at the water is pretty clear, so I'm hoping that bright bait stands out well. I've caught loads of fish on loads of different venues with those wowsers, so that's what I'm using today. Makes my life very, very simple. Now, if it was going to be one of those amazing days and each fishery is different, I would probably, slip an 8mm in the bait band, one tub of pellets on my side tray, that's all I'd need. And if I felt they were really coming to those 8mm, that's probably what I'd use, but I just think they're going to stand up a little bit today. So casting my bright bait, hopefully I'm going to nick a few extra fish. There's a lot of venues that I love fishing to a line clip, especially when I'm pellet waggler fishing, so the float constantly lands in the same spot all the time, but you just cannot do that at a place like Boddington because the fish, they tear off when you hook them. They fight ever so hard, and that's why we've got to use the right gear. We've hooked this fish probably at 30 metres out, and I bet he's now at 50 metres. He's gone a long way past where we hooked him. But it doesn't matter because we just need to take our time. Every fish needs to end up in the net. And at 10 to 15 pound a piece, you can soon rack up a weight. I've got to say today, it's all about hard work, and we've got fish coming to the bait, but they're hanging just past, and it's a case of making cast after cast after cast and just trying to land that bait in the right place at the right time. There's a few cruising around. Those fish don't seem to be that interested on settling on any bait. And I think that oil is doing its job because we're creating a really nice sort of flat area of the lake where the wind is obviously not hitting the water as the oil gets in the way, and that's where the fish tend to be sort of sitting. This fish feels like either a very big fish. It's now 2 or 3 pegs down to my right. I'm hoping it's not foul hook. Occasionally you can foul hook a fish on the pellet waggler. I don't think it is. We had a nice head shake then, I'm sure. Could just be a very big fish that's taking me for a swim around the lake. We're not on overly heavy kit. You know, I don't think the days of catching 300 or 400 pound here at Boddington are quite here yet. So if we can get, I'm saying 5 to 10 fish would be a great target on a day like today, which means taking our time. This fish is taking a lot of line, let me tell you. Just see that there's a few more people starting to catch an odd fish now dotted around the lake. This is the dam wall area of the lake, or what is called the dam wall. There's a road right behind, so if you do hear a bit of traffic noise, it's because of the road right behind. And it's a very busy area of the lake today, so it feels like what few fish were around this area at the start have maybe just pushed out of the angling pressure. And that's why it's going to be hard work today. There's a lot of anglers on this dam wall. It feels almost like a match sort of situation where everyone's fighting for the fish. So there's a lot of bait going in, a lot of activity, but it's always worth keeping an eye on the anglers around you, because that's a good barometer to when to maybe start upping your feed or change your tactics. Because if they're starting to get a few, means that a few fish are starting to feed, and you might need to start being a little bit more aggressive. I'm really keen to, while this fish is out there, I've got a slackish clutch, really keen to just feed a little bit of bait, because I don't want to lose what few fish are there. like I say, rattle on the surface with the pellets, but that oil is doing its job by keeping the fish in the area. This does feel like it's wrapped up. Don't know if it's foul hooked. I'm sure I've felt a couple of really nice head nods. It might have wrapped itself up. Obviously a long hook length, fish twisting and turning, it can always wrap itself up around a fin. It's coming in quite awkwardly though. I mean, it's shot off at a rate of knots. Hopefully you can see the action of the rod is spot on for this sort of fishing. Obviously plenty of power down here, but it's progressive. I've said it before, it's one of my favourite rods this CTX Carp Waggler 11 footer. Spot on for what we're doing today. I think if you were fishing maybe slightly longer hook lengths, you know, anything over 4 foot, I think maybe switch to a 12 footer, that would probably be a bit nicer because we've got steps behind us. So we wouldn't want the drop to be too much behind us with that longer hook length. But this 11 footer has been absolutely spot on. I'd love to see where this fish is because I've got no idea. It looks like there's a lot of line off the reel. I can only assume it's wrapped up or foul hooked because you normally, when you're playing a fish, you get those nice head nods, especially these big fish. Always try and do a nice piece to camera when you hook a fish because there's some action, we can talk about the tactics, then it's great, you know. But when the fish is taking ages to land, like some of these big fish do, it can be a little bit frustrating. You want to get that shock leader knot onto the reel. That's my first job. As we've been fishing, like I say, I'm not too sure the fish are coming to a load of feed, but the oil's important. So what I've found best is, it's a little bit different to normal pellet waggler fishing. It is to feed a lot of bait in one go. So sort of rattling in 10 pellets twice and leaving it for maybe 5 minutes, which is almost like you're fishing on the bottom, bomb fishing. But what I think's happening is the fish aren't coming to that steady stream of bait anyway, but the oils off those pellets are sitting there, and that's what I'm catching the fish off. So the bait has gone, the bait is on the bottom, and then an odd fish is coming in and sitting above it in the oil. There you go, that felt like it's just pinged off something. Hopefully that's going to be a bit better. Yeah, there we go. So it was wrapped up. And the fish are sitting in that oil, that's for sure. And then we can split our float into the oil. They can hear that float, they come to the noise, they see the bright bait, bang, you've got them. He's off again. There we go, shock leader knot right next to the reel. I'm pretty sure it's hooked in the mouth. I'm getting a few nice big head nods now. I mean, this method accounts for quite a few big old cruising fish. And you can probably hear, I play my fish with a bit of the drag and also back winding. If a fish wants to go on a big run, sometimes I'll back wind, sometimes obviously I'll let the drag do its job. But I just set that drag so the fish can take line, not under a massive amount of pressure. But I always feel it takes so long to hook a fish, you know. The last thing you want to do is lose a fish by playing it too aggressively. It's a little bit different if we're fishing for a massive weight, but that's not our target today. Now let's see if we can get him first time. Keep the rod nice and low, lift up behind us, let the fish nod his way up. Oh, he's a beauty. Oh, only just goes in the net. I'll tell you what, we've got these new landing nets, Free Spirit landing nets. They're a beautiful landing net. That's 55 centimetres. He only just goes in that. And I'm pleased I've put this big old 55 centimetre landing net on. Nice gripper handle as well, so we haven't got a risk breaking the landing net. Oh, he's an absolute stunner. A big, old Boddington bruiser. What an absolutely wonderful fish, massive shoulders. I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll get the unhooking mat out, I'll show you him up the bank. See, he's a classic Boddington fish. Look at this for a big old Boddington beauty. Absolutely stunning fish. He is a proper warrior. Look at the shoulders on him. Big humpty back on him. No wonder he took so long to land. He's probably conservatively 13 to 15 pounds, something like that I'm going to say. Big old tail as well. Look at that, a cracking fish. And that is what we're after. And even though it's a big fish, we still caught him on that little tiny wowser hook bait. So it just shows it's not all about big baits for big fish. Sometimes small baits work brilliantly for big fish. Let's get him back, let's catch a few more. Right folks, let's talk about kit for the day, because big expanse of water like this, we could tackle this lake with standard Pellet Waggler kit, you know, little short stumpy floats, 2 foot hook lengths below the float, light main lines, we could do all that, but the fish on this venue tend to sit a little bit further out, they're bigger, the average size of fish in here is 10 pound, quite often you could catch a 20 pounder, so you need robust kit. And you need to make sure that every fish ends up in your landing net. Let's firstly talk about the rod that I'm using. This is the Free Spirit Carp Waggler. It's 11 foot in length. It's from the CTX range. And this is one of my favourite float rods, you know. I've used this rod for silverfish fishing in the winter, catching roach and skimmers and chub, all the way up to catching double figure carp here at Boddington. It's a real all-round tool, 2-piece, the guides are beautiful, it's got a fantastic action, like I say, really nice. Something that I like about this rod in particular is the handle isn't overly long. Sometimes on float rods you get a really long handle, and I always feel the shorter handle, it gets in front of my body, it's not in the way. You know, sometimes a long handle you can catch it on the side of your body, so it ticks all the boxes for me. On the reel I've got 6 pound main line, which is, it's actually 018. It's a very thin 6 pound, and because it's only 018 millimeter diameter, I don't want to be casting all day off of that really thin line. So similar to as I would be when I'm feeder fishing, I've used a shock leader today. I've not gone mad on the shock leader because it's just to take the weight of the float. It's not really taking any heavy weights like you would feeder fishing. So I've gone for an 8 pound shock leader. I've tied that with a water knot to my main line, and I've got 3 rod lengths of the shock leader. So it goes up the rod, down the rod, plus 1 extra rod length. So let's work that out. It's an 11-foot rod. I've got 33 feet of shock leader there. So that just means that when I'm casting my float out, I've got extra durability, but also when I'm playing a fish close in, I've got the strength there, because what I don't want is light mainline playing a fish close in. You can see we're surrounded by rocks here. As I've mentioned, the fish are big. I don't want to lose any. Let's go down to the business end, because this is where I think some of you guys might find a little bit interesting. Our cameraman for the day certainly found it interesting. He's generally used to fishing smaller venues where smaller little dumpy wagglers are the name of the game. And when I showed him my waggler selection for today, he thought I was having a laugh. So I love these wagglers for casting a bit further on these big expanses of water. I've caught loads of fish on this style of waggler over the years, and these Drennan scuds, I'm not even sure you could get hold of them now, but I've got a big selection of them on my side tray I've accumulated, and I like them for several reasons. Firstly, the extra length. When I'm casting out and I want my float to hold there for just a little bit longer, that extra length is really important. Just gets out of the line a little bit further down underneath any skim, and the float just seems to hold for a bit longer. So if you're making, I know pellet waggler fishing is a busy way of fishing, but if you're maybe casting every 30 seconds instead of every 10 seconds, these are a great float to do that. Secondly, they fly amazingly well. The weight is distributed right at the base of the float. They fly amazingly well. That extra length and this ball at the top sort of straightens the float as it goes out. But this ball at the top, and you'll see when we're fishing, I mean, there's some of that ball showing when we're actually fishing, and that helps hook your fish as well, you know. So quite often, my style of pellet waggler fishing on these venues is to cast out, put my rod down, feed a little bit of bait, give it a bit of a twitch, feed again maybe, reel in. The whole process takes maybe 30 seconds, but I'm not looking at my float very often, let me tell you. I'm relying on the bulbousness of that float to hook the fish for me, coupled with keeping as tight a line to the float as I possibly can. Most of the bites, you know, tighten up to the reel before I can see the float disappear. So, you know, it's a very direct way of fishing. All I've done is I've threaded the float directly onto the line. I've got a float stop above, and I've got a couple of float stops below. I've actually put a stot on there as well, just because the float was sitting a little bit proud, but I've put a stot on there, which is a number 6 stot, just to try and take it down a little bit. So below that, I've got a twisted 6-inch piece of main line. And that's just a twisted loop that I've attached my hook length to. And my hook length, I store these on spools in really long lengths so I can cut them down to suit. But I've cut this down to around 60 centimeters. So we've got the float plus the hook length. We're fishing at around 3.5, 4 foot deep. This hook length is 0.18, and I've got a size 14 Kaizen tied knotless knot to a bayonet, and we're pushing them bayonets into our little yellow wowser. Now, a lot of people visiting Boddington will look at my end gear and think 0.18 line, it's on the light side, and this hook that I'm using, a size 14, is definitely on the light side. I mean, there's some specimen anglers here on the bank today, and there's some feeder guys, and there's other guys who fish this venue quite a lot. None of them will have a size 14 hook on. I'm saying the smallest they'll have on is maybe a 10 or a 12, if I'm honest. But I feel when you're fishing through the water, you're fishing on the drop, we need to use lighter gear. And I always feel that you get more bites as a result. It's a little bit different when your end tackle is laying on the bottom, because I think the hook and line combination, you can get away with a bit heavier gear. But when your bait's falling through the water, smaller hooks, slightly lighter line, if you get away with it, I'm sure you get more fish as a result. Back up here, you may have noticed I've got a little bit of a gap. It's about 8 inches that this float could slide on freely. Now, as I've mentioned, I'm trying to keep a pretty tight line to my float by using the reel and trying to maintain that tight line. I always find that with this gap, I get more bites, and I always feel that when the hook bait is falling, I get just that little bit, that extra 8-10 inch of very, very slow fall of the bait, No tension on the float, everything's direct to the float tip, and like I say, your bites are usually pulling the rod tip around before you even see the float move. It's a great way of fishing, one that has caught me loads of fish on loads of different venues, including here at Boddington. Well, as we kind of predicted earlier on, and it's often the case when you're catching big fish, the later in the afternoon that you can carry on your session for, the better. And whilst we've had a lot of fish just off the back of our feed today, we've started seeing more and more signs in our feed. So we can feed a little bit more regularly, a little bit more often, keep the bait going through the water, sort of like 5-10 pellets as often as I can physically do it. So I'm casting out, feeding 5-10 pellets, twitching the reel handle, moving the float a little bit, 5 or 10 more pellets, reeling in, repeating the process. You know, there's bait going through the water every 10 or 15 seconds, there's some bait going through the water, and those fish, there's more signs in that baited area now. It's definitely getting better and better. This is another nice fish. And just because it's getting better, we don't need to, I keep saying it, we don't need to start trying to haul these fish to the landing net. We just need to take our time. Every fish is a lovely fish. Especially for us today, we're not in a match situation, we can take our time, enjoy ourselves. We've used that nice big float that we can control. I know we've not had a lot of wind today, but we can control it loads better than one of those short stubby pellet wagglers that sometimes skid through with any amount of tow or drift on the water. They can skid through a little bit. And we've even, when we've got it right, we've even managed to land it on a cruiser or two that's swimming by. So that bigger float hasn't put those fish off. As always, the rod has been spot on. There we go, just see that waggler. See if we can land this fish. The trick really is when these fish come up, obviously you want to land them first time if you can, which is easier said than done. But when they're near the surface like that, you rod tip really low and you'll get the fish sort of wallowing on the surface. This one's wrapped up, so we might even get a better chance. Some of these fish here are ever so long. But if you can get the fish sort of coming towards you and just nodding its head, and I'm using this 4-metre landing net handle today. I mean, this is one of the helical match landing net handle. It's not an expensive landing net handle by any stretch of the imagination, but it's been absolutely spot on for what we're doing today. It's 4 metres in length, which means that when you're fishing rod and line and the fish pop up out of range of normal short landing nets, like that one there, we can reach and we can get him. Oh, once again, another one that only just goes in the net. You beautiful big common carp. God, absolutely stunning fish. And I'm gonna say, oh, what a stunner. I'm gonna say that is a fantastic way to end my Boddington Reservoir pellet waggler session. Beautiful day, beautiful weather, beautiful fish. What more could you ask for?